Yo, yo, yo. Hello, child. Hello, brother. Hello, sister. Hello, fellow human being. I think by now some of you have checked out some of my stuff. My name is Christopher, which is one version of expressing who I really am. You may consider me to be a guy like anyone else. Well, I think by now I've proven to the world, but foremostly to myself, that I'm a bit different. Yeah. So while I see humans sitting around in suits and cars and wearing headphones and shutting themselves off from the world, I have endeavored into reaching out to the world, to the entire world, by putting myself out there into the internet, so I would be able to speak to you and you would be able to listen. The content I have created thus far is my gift to humanity, to show them that whatever science is talking about, hidden potential, right? We're only using 20% of our brain capacity. Well, that might be true. But it is not only about brains and facts and numbers and classifying things. You may consider yourself to be a Homo sapiens. I consider this to be an opinion, nothing more. I've been trained like you have been trained. I've been raised in the same system that you have been raised in. I have been told that I'm basically a monkey. And then later they told me that no, we humans, our closest relative is some kind of shrew. And then they say, there's the Big Bang Theory. And then suddenly it's wrong, right? I mean, it's all pretty confusing. And when I look at this image, what do I see? I see wonder. I see hidden beauty. I see nature. Because what is nature? In nature, everything is round and lush, but also hard and demanding. And when I look at what we've created as what we consider to be the pinnacle of evolution, I can say that this is just people thinking about stuff and then creating things. And I really tried to be, because I was just watching Avatar, The Way of Water, and safely from my home, which means I can turn it off because, it's a load of crap. I mean, he had really the chance to create a good movie, but in the end, it's just war. I mean, he could have really taken the time to tell some really cool stories, like some really nice storytelling about Pandora and animal life. But in the end, it's just warfare. And that to me is pretty disappointing. So I'm glad I'm not supporting that anyway. But it brought me into this space of, I'm a warrior and that kind of stuff, which is true, but I wish to be more a warrior of the soul and of the heart than a warrior with guns and, right, like sweaty armpits and laying on the ground, struggling with other men, which is nothing else but an exchange of energy, which is nothing else but, some form of sex. To me, I don't know, maybe later I could do things like this. I don't really feel like I need to, because the way I see it, I don't need to fight other men to prove my strength. I'm just fighting for my own freedom by trying to become as conscious of myself and my surroundings as I can be. And for some reason or other, I have managed to train myself in isolation to do lots of things that supposedly cannot be done. And when I look at what humans create with machines or artificial intelligence, and then you can go online and you can type in phrases on certain websites, and then you say, a dog is eating cabbage. And then this artificial intelligence renders you a picture. But there's no love in that picture. There are no emotions. Computers just use what they're being fed, and then they make something out of it. That is not true creation. True creation means you have to suffer, and the machine cannot suffer. So I would say if I'm creative, it's maybe right in the beginning it was probably like 70% suffering and then 30% bliss. Maybe now it's 30% suffering and 70% bliss. Because the further you dive into your own consciousness, some people might call it the subconscious, but when you dive into your subconscious and you have a look around, that means you are transforming, you are converting the subconscious into consciousness. So the subconscious is only subconscious as long as you haven't looked at it. And I've made it my business now for, at least that I can actively remember doing so and asking questions and concerning myself with matters of consciousness. I've been doing this for around about 4 years. And I've used every method I came across and tried it. And, only the methods that spoke to me specifically by giving me a feeling of that's what I want to try. And that includes all kinds of things like diving, psychedelics, breathing exercises. Like that can be, I fainted several times doing breathing exercises. Diet. So I was unconscious about how I eat and how that makes me feel. And so I've changed my diet to the degree where if you would have told me 10 years ago that I would ever eat like that, I wouldn't have known how to do it. I probably would have thought, whoa, that's desirable, or that's cool, or that's how I would like to live. But the cravings I had and the food that I wanted and the kind of diet I had been trained by the people in my surroundings and by, so-called scientists who give me some kind of food pyramid, telling me I need meat and I need all kinds of things, I need milk products. This kind of training never allowed me to rise above myself until I was ready. You could say that. Because for some reason or other, certain things happened in my life, and one day I awoke. And if you talk about awakening, what that means is, I would like to... There's an interview out there by Carl Gustav Jung. And it was very late in his life. And the interviewer asks him something about consciousness or something. And his answer is that he was 11 years old and he suddenly stepped out of a mist. And he knew he was. In spiritual terms, you often say, I am. Right? I am. That's a feeling. When you know that you are, then you can see yourself as a separate entity from everybody around you. And that means that you can begin to free yourself with that feeling of I'm actually separate from all the rest that's going on. Despite these ideas of oneness, you've been born into a world of separateness. And that means you can then suddenly begin to make conscious decisions, because freedom of choice is always there. But if you don't know what to choose, because maybe you haven't been shown the options to choose from. Because the way I see it, I was always told this is how life is. This is how life is, and there's no questioning that, right? Right, there are animals and like this and like that and like blah, blah, blah. And the earth is this and this big and so many acres of land or I don't know what. And so there was never really an option. Although the option was always there, nobody told me about it. Until one day, and that may sound ridiculous, but, I actually don't want to talk about it. Because, sometimes you say certain things and other people are doubting you. They say, well, that's a bit stupid, Why would you ever think that or wonder about that? But the way it was with me was that, I'm just going to say it, I studied. And then I studied in South Africa. And at the end of my stay in South Africa, I was smoking cannabis with somebody. And he suddenly asked me a question. And anybody who's ever smoked cannabis probably knows or should know or, might yet find out that cannabis opens your spirit to certain experiences and makes you more aware of your surroundings. You become more sensible to energy flow, some kinds of wisdom. Sometimes you get like insights that might feel disturbing, which you can then work with to get to a place of accepting that whatever you've been shown is actually the truth from a certain perspective. So you have to work yourself to the point where you accept whatever you've seen. And that might be trauma in other people, like family members. That might be trauma in yourself. That might be the truth about the world, that the world is not as you have been told it is, but slightly different. And What then happened to me in that moment was that for some reason I had opened up to all kinds of things. I made so many experiences that when I was sitting there and in South Africa, and he asked me that question, do you believe the earth is round or flat? My answer was, well, I think round, because nobody had ever asked me that. It was always like, the earth is round, right? And then he started sharing his belief that the earth is flat. And he explained to me what he had figured out, and I was open to it, I listened to it, and it literally destroyed my concept of the world. Suddenly everything I thought I knew lay shattered on the ground in front of my eyes. And I was then, probably for 3 weeks, I was basically going mad with thinking about, wait, is the earth round or flat now? Round or flat? Is it round or flat? And I kept watching videos about this, and then after about 3 weeks, I got to a decision where I said, I don't give a shit. To me, living on, whatever planet Earth is, it doesn't matter whether the earth is round or flat. And it doesn't matter to me how far away the moon is. Or, if you could live on Mars. I don't give a shit. And I realized that if I keep wondering about living on Pandora, there's actually people that killed themselves because they couldn't live on Pandora. Well, that's pretty stupid. Because have you ever lived on Pandora? Well, I have. Because Pandora is where you are. You could go now, these people that killed themselves, they could have realized that Pandora is basically the Amazon rainforest. And the Amazon rainforest is being destroyed every day more and more. The same shit that's happening in that movie is happening in our world. And instead of changing that, you have people like whoever that guy is that created those movies, that waste millions of euros, like tons of resources, creating movies that are completely fake, while they could just go to the Amazon rainforest, film these people, and raise awareness. But instead, you have idiots like that guy creating movies. Do you know how much stuff the movie industry throws away? That's just a little sidetracking, but I think it's okay. I've worked in a cinema, and for one movie, in one cinema, there's countless posters and gimmicks and things like plastic cups just for advertising the movie. And that movie will run about a couple of weeks, and then all of this is going to be thrown away. And that's one movie in one cinema. Do you know how many movies are running in how many cinemas each day or each year? How much trash that is? Did you know that in The Lord of the Rings, numerous horses died just for shooting something fake? Just for taking a perfectly awesome book and turning it into something that doesn't even resemble the book anymore? Have you ever realized, maybe by watching The Lord of the Rings and reading the book, that so much insight and knowledge is hidden in the book, while there's almost nothing in the movie? Like, movies are so desolate of wisdom. I can read 2 pages inside a book, and I get more out of it than watching 3 hours of an Avenger movie. Because all you see there is like, six packs, explosions, because these things are supposed to give you a feeling of awesomeness. Do you know what's awesome? To hike the tallest mountain in Ireland in bare feet. To go swimming in December in the North Sea. That is what makes you feel alive. And because I have made several experiences that showed me that feeling alive is something you do and not something you watch from the outside. Life is something you engage with. You jump into it, you dive into it, and you make experiences, and you get hurt. And the pain will be your teacher. And you will learn from it. And you will heal. And you will realize that everybody around you doesn't know shit about anything. They don't know anything about life because they don't live. Not in the sense that maybe you want to live. Because telling them you don't live, it's like controversy or controversial. Because yeah, sure, in a way they do live, but do they really, right? Like some people, they just want more out of life. And I turned out to be one of these people who wanted more out of life and who got more out of life, but who also realized that as long as I'm just alone, it's kind of boring. Because what I want is like fires and dancing and singing. No alcohol. Right? Connecting with spirit. I want to show people how to live. How to eat. All kinds of things. Because I've learned all of that. And day after day, I'm sitting alone in my room, creating more and more content to catch people in my net of content and to make them marvel at it. Because everything I create by myself. I take a pen and I draw an image. And then I bring it onto the computer because that's where people are going to watch it from. So it also makes sense, of course, to use the colors that computers have available so that the screen can show it really flashy. And I like that, right? It's a tool I like to use. It doesn't make sense to me to really paint on paper. But I still like taking a pencil and drawing something and then bringing it onto the computer and making something else out of it. Because we do live in a world of technology. And to catch people that are drowning in the sea of technology, you have to give them something that speaks to them, but comes from a different place than, Thor's six-pack. But more like, okay, this is like whatever higher wisdom is. This is like coming from somebody who has spent hours looking at the world, looking at himself, diving into himself, and then trying to express what he found. Trying to express having watched 16 years of porn. How do you express that? Well, I've tried in my images. I've tried in my books to put it down, what I've learned, to get away from that shit. Because it's a replacement. Watching porn is a replacement for a true and honest relationship. Because you are probably afraid to love. Because all you've ever known about love is that it's a pile of shit. Because nobody has ever loved you, and you have never loved yourself. And so when I look at this image, what I see is novelty, right? And I'm the one who created it, but I've never seen things like this. What I see is something honest. What I see is something awesome and beautiful. But I also see my wish for the mystical, for wonder, for magic. And that's what I have discovered in myself, in that 20 square meters of room. But I was only able to discover it because of the experiences I had made until then. Because I had traveled already. I already had lived in other countries. I had made several experiences with all kinds of animals, including snakes, like 4-meter pythons and crocodiles and all kinds of stuff. And that then allowed me to distance myself from the version of myself that was born in a certain city and forced to take up some kind of nationality. Where I say now, I have no nationality. Right? That's the way I see it. And yeah, so I mean, what's the deal then in the end? What are you supposed to do now? Well, figure it out. If you want, dive into my content. There is basically, if you want to really spend time with it, which is something you would have to do if you want to understand what I'm talking about, you have to really spend time with this. It won't do to just skip through these videos. You really have to listen and try to understand what it is I'm talking about. Because I really wanted to understand why I was the way I was, why I was living in constant up and downs, why I was so unhappy, why I felt shit, why I was living in a mist. I wanted to break out of that prison that had been created for me. And I found a way. I'm more free in 20 square meters of this room than most people are in their giant mansions. And I think that's all I'd like to say in this recording. Anyway, right? It's like about take a chance at life and love and all kinds of things. Make experiences, but also learn from them. Like, what do certain experiences teach you? Right? If certain people make you angry, why is that so? Some people make you angry on purpose because they like it when other people, burst out, because that means they have control over them. Right? They can flip one of their little domino stones and then you get angry and you shout around because you've been manipulated by the people around you. And when you then start getting angry, they say, oh, now he's getting angry. He's showing weakness. No, he's showing strength. Because he's actually feeling something and you are not. And that's then what you call a psychopath who feels through the emotions of other people. And that's why psychopaths often go around killing people, because they feel through the pain of others. They basically create the pain that they feel themselves, but they shut it away. And then they create that pain in other people. And the same, of course, applies to torture. The only person that could ever torture another person is one that is torturing himself inside through guilt or shame or greed or whatever, unfulfilled desires, trauma, and emotional wounds. Yeah, and I think that's it.